Okay, we want to welcome everybody tonight to the content protection for my home. This is a webinar that's free. It's sponsored by Family Foundations Canada and also the Family Dream Institute. And we've got two amazing guests here tonight. We have David Redicott, and David is the CEO of Atom Networks. And in order to protect his own family and the people that he cares about, David has been on a 12-year journey implementing the best technology the industry has to offer. He finally became convinced that the only way to effectively protect people was to completely rethink the philosophy that this technology was based on. Out of it was born Atom Networks. And David and the team he leads has a passion for protecting people online. And I want to just say that I know David personally and that he has five amazing sons, and that he just has a real love for the Lord. And so we want to welcome David on the call. And as well, we want to welcome Francois Driesen. He is a visionary and a human ambassador for Atom Networks. He is the guy that's promoting and sharing and helping people all across the network across Canada. And Francois has a deep inner calling to protect the vulnerable. He was dedicated much of his career to protecting human hearts from the exploitation and the slavery of online addiction. His heart is to communicate truth that will set people free and to apply tech for good. He fights for the user to have technology serve people and not the other way around. And so we want to welcome both David and Francois onto the call today. And we're going to turn things over to Francois right now.
Hi, hello. Thank you. Thank you so much, Neil. Hello, guys. Welcome here. It's so nice to see you. As you heard a little bit about David and myself, a little bit of about what we do now is obviously that we're part of Atom Networks, and our core is really to protect people. At the core, all of the technology, all of the hearts, it all comes down to one thing: is to protect people, especially those who choose to be protected. And we're not going to be talking to you guys. I mean, obviously, we'll be using the expertise that really the Lord has given us in order to help protect people. We'll be using that, but we're not going to be talking to you as security professionals tonight. We're speaking to you guys as dads. We're speaking to you as people who have taken the responsibility of helping to protect other people. And so we want to make this practical for you, specifically for your house. In the previous message that we did, we spoke a little bit about the different domains of protection, and we go into more of a global overview. But if you guys would remember, the first and the most important, I think, because that's really where we come from, is the content protection side. That's the stuff that's obvious, and that's obvious that it's bad. Some of it's more obvious, some of it's less obvious. But then there's also, of course, the security side. And what's interesting, for content protection, security, and privacy protection, it's really the same technology. It started out with needing to do content protection and really David needing to solve issues that the technology of the time couldn't solve. That's where it started out. But it just so happens that it's the exact same tools that also protects against security threats, and it helps with privacy protection. And then there's also this other aspect. You know, this whole approach is about protecting your house or protecting your organization from stuff that's bad on the outside. But there's also this dangerous thing on the inside, and that is just digital addiction, something that comes from the inside. How I'm increasingly believing that man was actually built in a way to be addicted to the one that created us, to continuously think about him, to continuously desire him. And it's so easy when something breaks inside of our hearts that we try to stuff something else in that hole. So most people actually are addicted to something in some way. The only addiction that is healthy is becoming addicted and finding the one that created us and allowing him to fill our hearts, to fill that hole. So David, maybe you can just speak for a little bit about how, when we started on content protection, just give us a short version of what actually triggered you to do this.
Sure. So my wife and I are blessed with 5 sons. And early on, when our oldest son, Levi, was still small, we felt the strong conviction that he really needed to be under training by mom and dad a little bit longer than the typical, years 1 through 4, and then pass them off, outsource the education to someone else. And so we did not have a background in homeschooling, and we didn't have extended family that did that. And but we felt a strong calling to do so, but wanted to make sure that there was lots of real world experience. And one day we had visited a chicken farm and came home, and Levi wanted to see pictures of baby chicks. And so naturally, when we did a search on Google at the time, and in keywords were baby chicks, some of those weren't the chicks that we thought that we would be seeing on the screen of image thumbnails. And so that's what set us down this journey of saying, how is this future going to look for our children? How are we just going to become another statistic about accidentally stumbling upon something we weren't looking for, and then have the enemy use that to ensnare our sons? And so that set us down a path to say, well, we're in the IT business. We solve problems. How do we solve this particular one? Well, someone's already solved it, right? That there was this common wisdom at the time that there is nothing new to do. Someone's already done it. You just got to find who's done it and use that. And so we literally cast a very wide net looking for a solution and tried everything. I spent every evening and every weekend. I got all kinds of commercial grade and even enterprise grade products into the home. But the challenge for me, the final test always was, well, how good is the protection? If I use the analogy of a fence around the house, how big is that fence? And it turned out they were all just white picket fences that as soon as you stepped over them, it was like there was no fence at all. In other words, bypassing and circumvention was child's play. And nowadays you'll find that too, that any common filter that you put into a home or a school, kids just laugh it off. It's like there's no filter. And this is in the public school system today. It's a joke, because all you need to do is go into YouTube and say, how do I bypass, and put in the brand name of the filter? And then you'll find 65 options on how to do that. And so that reality is what set us down the path and brought about the realization that the philosophy of how we've been doing protection is wrong.
Right. What's interesting for me is that David and me met about around that time, and I just got off making a film to create awareness of the addictive nature of pornography online. And I thought that this film would be something that the church could use in order for the pastors to speak to the men speak to their children, and just prepare them and at least have an open dialogue. Now, no one spoke about this 12 years, 13 years ago. It was completely taboo. Anyhow, what was interesting is that none of the pastors actually wanted to touch this film with a 10-foot pole. And it's only once I started joining forces on the second project I did called Scratching the Surface, where I realized why. And it turns out that 80% of pastors at that time already have become addicted to online pornography. Now, I don't want to dig too deep into, because that's sort of like a whole seminar or discussion in itself, but here's the issue. I don't think any of those guys ever woke up one day and said, today I'm going to put my destiny and just throw it to the pigs. I'm going to take pearls and throw it to the pigs. Today I'm going to endanger my whole congregation. Today I'm going to stand a chance of completely missing my destiny, right? I don't think anyone woke up and said, this is what I'm going to do today, but yet it somehow happened. And the issue that we have here is that with content that are continuously bombarding and streaming towards us, not like, just like what David and his family experienced, not all of it is stuff that you asked for. Actually, most of it is stuff that you didn't ask for. And when I did the Scratching the Surface project, everyone whose lives were severely affected by pornography, all of their stories started the exact same way. And it started like this. They said, well, I wasn't really looking for it, but it somehow just found me, okay? And I was pretty young when it happened, and it just changed their brain. It changed how they thought, and it grabbed hold of them and then set their whole life on fire in the wrong direction. So that all to say, let's make this and take content protection. So, well, how do I actually protect my house? Where do I even start? And for any of you guys who are here tonight that are saying, well, I don't even know where to begin, how to do this. Technology, for many reasons. I mean, you have your reasons. I don't even have to dig far, but you have your reasons. But I just want to give you an encouragement tonight. David, could you read this one for us out loud?
I'd love to. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks, it shall be opened.
So I just want to encourage you. This is where we started. This is where we started 10, 12 years ago. And the Lord has given us solutions to patch every hole that we have run into so far. So there is hope. I'm not saying that it's easy, and I'm not saying that there's a single box and you press one little button and poof, everything is just magical and amazing. No, that's not how the internet is. But we have technology now that can be properly applied. But let's go to the philosophy here. If you're going to be successful in protecting your home, let's go back to the main philosophy for protection online. And we've spoken about in the previous seminar, but this, I just want to do this again. So your effective protection is not achieved by technology. Technology by itself does not do good. Neither necessarily, technology by itself can actually do bad, but definitely doesn't by itself just do good. It's once a human heart chooses to put it to good use and finding that right strategy. And if you apply that technology, now you can have proper protection, all right? So let's just think again about digital gates. And you guys need to always remember this. The moment there is a screen and a modem together, you have a digital gate. It means that when that gate opens, there's an access to a new world. And you can step from here through that gate to anywhere in the world. Distance and time is completely removed. But whatever is there comes back to you as well. And so every one of these gateways you have to identify. So now let's apply this to how do we actually protect our house. So you can already just, if you've got some notes scribbled down, go and look for every screen that is in your house. Something is feeding content on that screen. It's a potential gateway, all right? And so that's already going to be a good start for you. Not everything has a screen. They could also be a doorway, and there's also doorways for machines, but specifically for humans. When we talk content protection, it's about human gates, right? So that means it's a screen so that your eyes can see that as well. It's also applicable to music and whatnot, but specifically just because we're so visually dominant and there's so much power in video and in images that we're going to focus specifically on when to find the screens. Find the screens. If you have to, go and put a tag on every screen so you have a number and a book, every screen in my house, so that you start getting an inventory for the devices that are there. Okay. Now, think about this too. The internet is a tool. The internet was not created by God. Man created the internet, right? It's like money. And what's fascinating is you can actually take this. So that means the internet really is a collective expression of human hearts. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt people hurting other people. And because of that, that's what you find online. So David, how many domains are for malicious intent now, new domains? You got that stat?
Well, there's more than 85% of brand newly registered domains are registered with malicious intent. And we know this because of the amount of security research attention that is now placed when the new domain is registered and how it is being purposed by looking at who its neighbors are, who its friends are, and where does it get hosted, what content does it serve, that it wasn't done for wholesome intent. 85% of everything new is malicious by intent.
Yeah. And so the internet really, I mean, it is a tool, it's an incredible tool, but just like if I were to give my son a saw, and let's say we're going to build a deck and I give him the saw, incredible saw. With this saw, he can cut 2x4s really fast and we can build a deck. But there's a pretty high chance that that saw is going to jump and hit him in the face, or it's going to take his fingers off. Okay. If I hand my son the saw and say, go ahead, knock yourself out. Okay. Am I being a good dad? Like I wish I could see you guys' faces right now. Most of you guys' videos are off. I'm going to assume just someone at least shake your head. Okay. I'm not being a good dad. Okay, guys. We have to understand that the internet is a tool like this. It is a tool with immense potential, but it doesn't come safe. The internet, as it is raw, is incredibly dangerous and incredibly infectious. That scripture we read a little bit earlier, let's continue with that. David, can you read that again for us? Continue with this.
Or what man is there among you, when his son shall ask him for a loaf, will give him a stone? Or if he shall ask for a fish, he will not give him a snake, will he? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what is good to those who ask him?
Okay. What's fascinating to me is how Jesus just throws it on saying, hey, you guys are evil, but even then, you still know how to give good gifts to your kids. Guys, today, we don't know how to give good gifts to our kids because our kids saying, Mom, Dad, I need a search engine to do my school project. And I actually, boom, I just hand him a snake. Because he's going on there, or say, here you go. There's a smart device, not protected. Jump on social media, do whatever, oh, you just figured this out, right? That is me handing the saw that's going to jump and take my kid's face off, take his fingers off, or, or even worse, it through him starts injuring other people as well, okay? So we have to understand that think about the internet as a tool, but do not think of the internet as something that is ready for a human to use without getting hurt. You have to do something to make sure that people are not going to get hurt, okay? And so there's two things that you can do. There's two sides of the spectrum. You can either try to just say, hey, I'm going to do nothing about this, or you can say, I'm going to try to control everything. And somewhere in the middle is where you're going to land, not because you choose. If you choose even to do everything right, there's still going to be stuff that's hard or stuff that you can't attain. But I can tell you that from my personal conviction, David's conviction, and the people that we work with, we feel that when it comes to protecting other people, protecting tools, protecting the internet, go as far to the right as you can. Go as far to getting to that place where one day when you give account to the Lord for your family, that you do not hear how a tool that you placed in your child's hand ended up being the tool that the enemy used to steal their destiny, okay? And I'm not just talking about the child, we are vulnerable ourselves to get exposed to stuff and get hurt. So, all right, so from there, the first thing that's important to understand in protecting your house is you have to work with hearts and technology, and work with hearts first. It's no good if you just start trying to implement technology and you don't focus on the hearts of the people that you're trying to protect. If you're trying to protect a person that does not choose to be protected, he will fight you, okay? They'll feel that something is being taken away from them. It will not feel like protection. It will feel like just restraints, right, to them. So you have to figure out that what you do has to be appropriate for the individuals in your house. And you can't do this, you can't treat a toddler and a teenager the same way. You simply cannot do that. And you can't lead out of position, because you might have a house that has no bad content in your home. And the moment that your children leave the house, boom, they just get grabbed by the enemy, and they get into trouble anyway, because they might have submitted, but they haven't truly submitted. You guys get what I'm saying? Don't be too hard. You have to make sure that people understand. You have to come to an agreement together of what you want to achieve, and get unity amongst the people. If you start implementing a new system and people don't understand, because anything that brings protection has an inconvenience factor to it. A seatbelt, a 5-point harness. If you're in a helicopter, there's something inconvenient about that, right? Or for those of you guys that hunt, if you climb into a hunt stand, you got to wear a harness so you don't fall out and break your neck, right? There's some inconvenience about protection. So there's always a cost to that. But if you look at the value of what you get when you properly protect your house, then suddenly that cost is worth it. If you just focus on the cost and not the value, and you don't even know what the value is, it becomes too heavy and you can't effectively protect, okay? The other thing too is be willing to make sacrifices on behalf of other people. A simple example, the things that you choose to watch as a parent is sending a message to your kids, right? If you're allowing yourself to be entertained by something Jesus died to free you from, you are sending a message to your kids, and you can't hope that they're not going to do the same thing, okay? Or for instance, if you guys as a family say, you know what, we're going to fast social media because the result is just depression or whatever it is in our house, I might be okay with some level of social media, but I know my sister really has a bad time with that. And I might say, okay, I'm willing to make that sacrifice, that we as a group, we as a family are going to do this together. So that's just something that we found very, very helpful. Any community where that's the case, you have a far higher chance of proper success. And have an open dialogue, okay? Make sure that you serve the best interest of your family and not your own. And of course, get help. I mean, if you don't understand how to do things, you might need to pay someone to help you set something up in your house. And you have to come back to this thing as what is the cost of a human heart? There is going to be a cost to it. That's just how it is. And the internet doesn't do this thing. The enemy doesn't do this thing that says, oh, you're not willing to pay the price. You're not willing to cut off the arm or gouge out the eye. So if you guys understand what that analogy is coming from, you're not willing to pay that price, okay, in order to protect against falling into sin. Okay, you're not willing to pay the price. I'm going to take it easy on you. That's fine, you know. Now I'm going to become safe to you. The internet just simply doesn't do that. Okay, so how do you actually do this? So the first method here is to use digital supervision. That means you could actually do this without any additional technology. You could say, let's do everything together. If you're online, there's open dialogue, you do it with me. I know what you're watching. I know what you're doing. Talk about everything. When he or she is exposed to some pornographic thing or whatnot, you get exposed to the same. That's one way of doing it. And it's just full-on discipleship 24/7. Great ideal, not fully practical, right? It does some things, it doesn't resolve other things. There's another approach, and that is accountability. And accountability says everything open, but if you run into bad things, now I know about it. So it's kind of similar to digital supervision, but it's essentially using technology to try and achieve that, okay? And then there's this third approach of saying, but hold on, we could actually, what if we could change the internet? What if we could press a button and suddenly internet pornography is just non-existent for my house, okay? Now, you guys need to understand, I started in the accountability in the digital supervision area, where I thought, if you try to prevent someone from going somewhere, all you're doing is making them want to go there more. And that's where I started, until one day, I had this discussion with someone, and the discussion came up, said, you know what, if I could press a button and reset the internet and choose what is on the internet, and internet pornography just simply doesn't exist for my kids, would I not press that button? And that's the day that the light bulb went on for me, okay? And so that's where filtering come in. But you have to also figure out what you're actually protecting against. You have to say, okay, am I protecting against this accidental exposure? And filtering is fantastic for that. Accountability to some extent is good for that. Digital supervision is good for that, but really it never presented that porn image or that stuff to just hit you in the face that you never asked for, right? So that's one thing that you have to protect against. Then there's also this chronic exposure through ads, exposure through media that you go into, you know, as you're surfing on YouTube and whatever. And there's this systematic hypersexualization where our ideas of who we are and what it means to be human just get warped more and more and more and more. And so that's something that you need to protect against too. The way that we protect against the first is just to make it impossible for these things to reach the house. The way that we protect against the second is also to get rid of it. So say, hey, no ads are coming through. But now there's also this other aspect where there's a willful exposure. Someone in your house might say, hey, I wonder, kids at school are talking about this and whatnot, and they're curious. They're not necessarily looking for evil. But David, that proverb about he who seeks out evil, how does it go again?
Yes, Proverbs 27:11. He who seeks good finds it, but whoever seeks evil, evil finds him.
That's right. Okay, that's a problem. Okay, so anyhow, so the way that we protect against that willful exposure as well is through filtering to prevent access of any device to go there. Now, there's also willful exposure through rebellion, or where someone is actually addicted in your house. Okay, and these are the things that you're protecting against, and you have to figure out what you're dealing with, and you have to change how you're protecting in order to fit in these different categories. Okay. Now, the good news is there is actually a way. We actually call it the bright web. I mean, there are different ways, and in the previous teaching we did, we spoke about all sorts of different solutions and whatnot. What we're going to focus on tonight is the solution that the Lord has put in our hands. It's called Adam 1. It is an ability that we have through technology to say we can choose what the internet is for a house. So essentially, we call it the bright web, just affectionately. It's a new version of the internet. For your house, it's going to look different than the house down the street. Okay, and the whole premise here is that the house or the leaders of the house gets to decide what devices can connect to and cannot connect to inside that house. So to apply that, you first have to figure out what are the channels, what are these doors that are coming in. Okay, every connected screen is a gate. And next thing is to say, well, let's look at my home network. Then I have to look at what are the devices in that network. You also have to figure out, is this device able to connect outside, like a smart device that has a SIM card in it, like my iPad is the same, that has a SIM card to it, okay? So it could be protected while it's on the home network, but it can connect outside. And then you have to start looking at what's on that device. So social media, inside of social media, there's dark areas, there's dark zones, there's dark habits inside of that. And of course, end-to-end encrypted messaging services. So these are all things that you have to drill down to, and we'll give you guys the note afterwards, but every one of these things you have to address specifically, okay? The easiest way to deal with all of them is to have none of them. That's the easiest way. But when you actually need to have these channels open, you have to make sure that you protect in these channels. Oh yeah, and then of course, televisions, streaming media, and it's not just TV, I mean, it'd be through anything, smart devices or whatever, but video on demand services. So there's different ways of actually protecting. And the first is to say, hey, here's my house, here's all of the devices out there. I now have a list of all of them that are out there. You can take the approach that most accountability systems work on, and that is to have some sort of endpoint protection. And that requires you to install some sort of software on the device itself, okay? The issue that you have is, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse pointer here, but this is the TV on the left. Then we have the PlayStation, we have the Apple TV, there's a thermostat, a doorbell. Oh, and just so happens that your fridge has a screen in it that has a browser built in. If you don't have one within the next 5 years, you probably would. I've just, one of our clients actually called me the other day and say, hey, can I please access the internet through my printer? I thought, what, your printer? Oh, it just turns out that the printer has a large touchscreen on it. So it's basically an Android device built into the printer with a browser in it, in a printer, right? And then there's this other device that has an operating system that's too old, or it's not compatible, or you just haven't gotten the software to run on it. You guys see what the problem is with this house. Some devices are protected, but there are these gaping holes where stuff can just stream in and out that doesn't have any protection in it. And then this device on the right, this is your friend's device. We call it the rogue device, the device that comes into the house that's not one of your kids' devices. Okay, so this is basically what an endpoint protection approach looks like in reality. And of course, as David explained, that to us left too many gaps. And here's the gateway protection approach for a house. And here the approach is to say, well, what if everything that connects to the internet at this connection point, what if we could clean the interaction between the device and the internet at this point? Everything inside this house that is connected to this Wi-Fi gets access to Brightweb. So if it's a Brightweb capable gateway, right? This to us makes a lot more sense. There is a caveat with this. Well, what about multi-home devices? So let's say this device out here. Oh, good news is someone from the outside brings their device into the house. You can just have a default policy that says no internet, or have a policy that the moment anything is connected, doesn't matter what the operating system they are on, if they're connected to the internet, the gateway decides what they can access and what they cannot access, right? But so let's go back to this multi-home device. That means a device that has more than one network that it can connect to. That is a problem because this device is still in your house, but it's connecting to the cellular tower, right? We do have a solution for that. And the solution really is to have multi-home protection. You can do that via VPN, and there's all sorts of ways that we can do it. We actually have a solution for that applied through Atom Go and Atom APN. Stay tuned for that. We will tell you more about that in the next presentation. But this is we're gonna keep staying focused on protecting the home base now through the gateway protection, right? Just so you guys know that the stuff, there is solutions out there, but let's focus on protecting the house right now. Okay. So what we now have, and David, if you're getting ready there to just give a demo of basically what it would look like for us to apply this to a specific device, you can actually block harmful content. You can block trackers, malware, spyware, ads, force safe search on for a device, force YouTube safety mode. You can have scheduled access. You can have a different policy for different devices. That means that my toddler's device doesn't get the same internet access than what my wife's device gets. Okay, and there's no reason why my toddler's device at 10 o'clock at night should have any internet. In actual fact, after 7 o'clock at night, whatever, right? So anyhow, so these are features that are available. But let's think about David. I'm going to talk about what's important, and then David can demo to you guys. What you're looking at here is the dashboard interface for an Atom 1 router. We have a home version. This is actually a commercial product. It's an enterprise grade or military grade security system that was born because we needed to protect the house. It became stronger and bigger and bigger. Now it's like the Apache attack helicopter, okay, for security and privacy and content protection. But you might need something to just go through the drive-through. Now, taking a helicopter, Apache attack helicopter through the drive-through is not easy, okay? So now we have to have more of a watered-down version in order to make it work for homes. But the first thing is, let's look at default device treatments. Someone comes into your house. They don't have any software to protect their device. How is it actually handled? David, can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. We had just had this example this week. Our son Silas celebrated his 13th birthday, so we have our third teenager now. And he brought another teenage friend over, and he had a switch. And because our children know that when a new device is introduced to our Wi-Fi network, it needs to be explicitly given permission to do anything. Because as soon as it joins the Wi-Fi, we all now know, right, that Wi-Fi passwords are really not secure, because it's a matter of another person walking up close to you. And if they're in your contact list, you know, Android and iPhones will gently ask you, oh, do you want to share this password? And your children, even if they don't know the password, share it with their friends. So having a Wi-Fi password taken as secret is not security. Mm-hmm. So you need to take it to the next level. Say, okay, we'll just assume other devices will join our Wi-Fi. Now what? So we have this notion of a default policy that we call a holding tank. And because it's a default, it means that anytime there's a new device that joins the network that has never been seen before on this router, it says, I don't know who you are, So we're going to treat you by default by blocking everything, except we're going to allow you a couple of things. We're going to allow Apple iMessages through, and we're going to allow the holding tank to go through, and we're going to allow Gmail. So that way, if someone who just needs access to their email and iMessages on an iPhone, they don't have to ask for permission. That'll work right away. But anything beyond that, they will then have to ask for permission. And so then I'll say, okay, you just join the network. Just click on, go to this address on mytools.management, who am I? And it'll tell them what their device is, what their MAC address is, what their internal IP address, any one of those pieces of information, that is what they'll share with mom and dad. And so then mom and dad will, and then mom or dad will say, okay, then let me go ahead and give you a different policy for access. So that's how we handle the default treatment, meaning a new device just joined the Wi-Fi network.
Right, absolutely. So sorry, what David has already started doing there is sort of like the next step, and that is to actually do inventory of devices on your network. Remember that I said you go to every screen and you say, hey, are you a digital gateway, right? You want to know about every single device that is in your network. And so what David just showed you there is a new device joined, and this is a way for him to ID the specific device, right? Why this is important is because any device that is on your network, we're not talking about security and privacy right now, we're just talking about content protection. Any device on your network is a potential gate. If you have 2,000 doors, okay, and you lock 1,999, the snake is going to crawl through the one door that is unlocked. That is just how it works, okay? That's why it's important to add inventory. So David, you can show them a little bit more about inventory there, and then roll into safe search.
Right. So if someone said, yeah, I have an iPod and my device is just called iPod Touch, yep, I see you there. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the same access as my children's devices, right? So as soon as I've done that, and if I hit save, now that iPod will have the same access as the kids' devices that are on a schedule. And we have them on a tight schedule where during the day, when they need a device for school, it is school appropriate content and so forth. And one of those things is that they get to only access in the school policy, they only get to access Google if the safe search is turned on and it's forcefully turned on, meaning that there's no way to launch a private browser or a private tab and then have it bypassed because they're not logged in. When this switch is turned on any policy that says safer search engines, then Bing, DuckDuckGo, and Google, their search results are then filtered. So for example, if I were to go do that now, and I do a search for porn on Google, you'll notice that it does show news stories around the topic of porn or pornography, but it does not actually yield results that are pornographic in nature. If this safe search, you see at the top right where it says safe search on, there's no way to turn that off. If this safe search was off and I had to search for porn, absolutely every search result is streaming pornography with absolutely not even a warning sign. Someone clicks on a link and boom, it starts to stream. So this, in our world, we almost take this for granted, but that is an absolute first, is that safe search engine be turned on. And then along with that goes a separate rule that says, let's block all unsafe search engines. So that's down the list. But just so you know, that is what we do in terms of safe search. And you've got your choices. You've got Google, DuckDuckGo, and Bing. All three search engines have the ability with this toggle for the content itself to be filtered. Same thing applies to Google Images. So Google Images, Bing Images, DuckDuckGo Images actually show freely nude content. But with this, then at the very least, the limit of what those search engines consider reasonable is you have to be fully clothed. Well, bikinis will still show up, but outright nudity won't show up. So that's a lot better than the alternative option.
Yeah, right. And then also, you could also say, hey, you know what? Google is not even available at all. Or you want to only allow a search engine that just gives you text results. If you have someone in your house that are struggling, that have issues, and he is so broken and stuck that he's going to keep looking for string bikinis and whatnot, you could just completely shut down Google for that device, okay? Or if that guy is vulnerable at 10 o'clock at night onwards, so anything up until 9 o'clock, that's fine. You do have Google and you can do image searches, but safe search enforced, right? So you have a lot of possibilities there, or completely shut down all other search engines, but give them text-only search results. And then YouTube safety mode and schedules.
Yeah, so let's go to YouTube. And if I were to do a search here for anything, say Atom Networks, you'll notice that no matter what I click on, that when I am in here, I can only see comments if the video is created by us. If I were to be on anybody else's content, say this one here, I cannot, oh, I must be unfiltered. So here's how you can quickly check. YouTube,
Okay.
atomnet.io/YT takes you to and shows you whether you have any filtering enabled. And the policy that I'm on right now is actually YouTube unfiltered.
Oh, okay.
So I need to switch myself on this demo device here that I'm on. And I was demoing the home, but my computer is at the office. So it's at a different location. It's on this one.
Right.
So as you can see, it's also multi-homed. So if any one of you, like we have some folks that are champions for extended family, so they will manage the accounts of others over their friends. Mm-hmm. In fact, if I can quickly share a story, a dear friend of mine, David is his name as well, out of Phoenix. He has a 13-year-old son, and he came to me, he and his wife, and they're in tears because they have no way of, they feel like they are at the end of every possible option to keep him away from screens. And so they did the hard thing that Francois talked about, and they're continuing to do the hard thing, but also now needed to make sure that in the middle of the night, he doesn't get up and go back online. So we got them Atom 1. And then 3 days later, he calls back and says, I don't know what's going on, but nothing's working. So we checked in and we noticed that all of Kyle's devices were on the unfiltered policy again. And that's when we realized, oh, he's using his parents' password to remove his policy back to being treated without any filtering. And so then we said, okay, change your password. They changed the password. 3 days later, he figured out that password and had changed himself back again. And so finally they said, okay, take our access off, David. Can you manage it for a while? And that's where we are right now. And now I'm in a texting relationship with the 13-year-old boy I've never met. And I am able to speak into his life and say, your mom and dad care about nothing on earth more than you. You need to know that. What you're doing here is super, super incredible what you get to do and learn in school. But look at the dangers. And so what I did is I demonstrated to him that you can look at your log in real time. So here, let me quickly fix this. Sorry about that.
So you can the log, that's fine. So as you switch that on, there is a log that can show every computer that you allow to. In this case, David's machine was not allowed to see its own logs, but everyone that you allow to see logs will show you everything that your computer is trying to connect to. And sometimes it is so eye-opening to see how much chatter there is on trackers and ads and stuff and even spyware in the background while you're busy going online. So in this case, he's just switching on log to allow the device that he's on to see his own logs. So if he refreshes now, it should actually show up.
There you go.
There we go. And so this, everything that is green is what is allowed through, but everything that is red is actually blocked. Okay. So so David, if you were to go to YouTube now, and do you have YouTube safety enforced?
Yeah, so let's let's do that as well. atomnet.io/YT. And so what you'll see that's different now is now I have moderate level of filtering, right? Okay. And so now if I go to youtube.com and I do a search for look at any video, you'll see that down below the restricted mode has hidden comments about this video, right? So even though I'm not logged in, it's not part of my profile, it's actually the gateway that is enforcing for this comment, for the comments to be restricted. And the size
David,
of the
can you
YouTube
just
library.
demo that?
Sorry?
Can you just demo that for us for a second? Like, we don't see your YouTube screen right now. We're actually seeing the logs.
Oh, shucks. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. I had switched
there we
to
go.
a different browser.
Okay, there
So
we go.
if you do a search in anything in YouTube now, you'll notice here at the bottom it says
Okay, there you go.
restricted mode has hidden comments for this video.
Okay, so it essentially now what it's doing is it's enforcing the restrictions that David had set for this specific device, regardless of whether he signs in or not, is not going to change it because it's actually done at the gateway. And that gateway is deciding what is allowed or not allowed for a device.
Right.
And then this is specific to you can treat devices by group, or you can treat individual devices. So that's also very important. Whatever solution that you try to use, my 14-year-old and my 10-year-old does not get the same privileges, and they're not on the same schedule. So another thing, David, if you just show them a little bit on a schedule.
Yes. So a good example of like what happens a lot in terms of content protection is that the distractions that kids are willing to put themselves through, YouTube is the #1 distraction. So we generally tend to say, okay, unless you need YouTube, here was a period today where my wife says the children will need YouTube access for a certain class. So that was, as you can see, from 9:15 till noon, YouTube was allowed today. But other than that, it's school policy, and the school policy generally does not allow for YouTube. And so that's how you can mix and match. And you'll notice that there's lots of empty white spots. And that is when the no internet policy applies. So before 8 a.m., there's no reason why our devices should have any internet access. And after about 9:15 in the evening, there's also no reason why there should be any internet access needed. Children need downtime. And if they do have a screen open, has something up and running, at 9 o'clock, that internet connection just shuts down and it is no longer accessible.
Thanks, David. And this is now specifically David taking responsibility towards children and their school scenario and whatnot. But I run a schedule in my house that shuts down YouTube after 11 p.m. because I should be sleeping. And I can't tell you guys, I mean, I'm a grown man. I know what's right. I know what's wrong. I've gone down rabbit holes on YouTube. And for a full hour, 2 hours, you're at the end of those 2 hours and you thought, what did I actually just do? Right? It didn't add anything to my life. I just allowed a big leech to suck on my face. You know, I just lost that time. I'm not going to ever get it back. And I just paid the price for being grumpy tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, I don't have the patience I should have with my kids or whatever. So I run a schedule on myself. Okay. It just makes it easy for me. So it's convenient. So the next thing that's really important is we're going to talk about this very briefly, is circumvention. You have to figure out what is the threat level of your home. If you have compliant kids and everything's great and they're not going to try to bypass things, there's lots of options for you. The more complicated it gets, where they say, oh, you know what, I want to run Siphon, and this is actually very quick and very easy, because some new browsers actually will run around whatever other firewall you might be trying to install in your home. Okay, it won't run around Atom 1 if you're on the commercial plan. It will do it if you're on the home plan. Okay, so you have to figure out what is the threat level that you're actually dealing with. So there's apps. There's apps on kids' devices that gives them access to the dark web via Tor browser in an app itself, Tor plus VPN and whatnot. So there's so many things. You just basically 2 clicks and the kid gets out. You have to actually figure out what you need. And if you need to go to that level where you prevent bypassing of the filtering, that's doable. But now you have to be on a commercial plan. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are at the moment. Okay. I mentioned already about device inventory. I've already showed how we do that. And we can actually, I think we should take a time for Q&A quickly. And then what we can do is we can actually dump to any of these slides. We say, well, this is how we treat a mobile device. This is how you treat a laptop. This is how you treat a tablet. So yeah, I think the theory, I think what you guys need is done for this stage. We can show some more practical examples, but I want to first open for Q&A here, okay?
If you have a question, you can just unmute your mic and you can ask the question.
Let me see you guys in the gallery view.
I've got a couple of questions.
Go ahead, yeah.
This is really excellent and an answer to prayer, because the Lord's been speaking to me about this for some time. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and you know, he's actually been giving me dreams about fortifying the gates of my home. So I'm really excited to hear about this. Just a question about the actual technology. So is this actually a physical router that you purchased, or, oh, it is, okay. So software, I mean, that would come with the router. Is that something that has to be updated, or is it an automatic update with the subscription? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'll answer quickly and let David give you the more technical answer. It really is, for it to run on a home router, it is a hack in order to get our software to run on the home router, okay? The best way for you to do this is to actually get it pre-installed and be on there. And then we actually don't at the moment, through Atom Networks itself, do home installations. We simply can't do it at this time. We have to focus on the commercial side. We don't have the workforce to focus on the home. But we do have guys that can help you do that. Like Nerds on Site is an MSP. I don't, where are you based, Melissa?
Just outside of Calgary. So, I mean, my brother has a master's in network architecture, so he could probably figure it out.
Okay, so I'm handing over to David at this point then.
Yeah, in that case, I don't think he'll have any issue. If your brother is a good kind of brother that is willing to utilize his skills and talent for family values, then he'll have no
I think
issues.
he would. He's probably going to be interested in this himself for his voice. So
we have a website at atomnet.io/Asus, and I put it in the chat for those interested.
okay.
And it lists a whole bunch of models like this one. So this is an Asus router that you can pick up at Staples or Newegg or wherever you buy your favorite technology. And it looks like your typical router, right? You've got your internet is going to come into the blue port. So this is where your Shaw or TELUS comes in, or Bell or Rogers. And then your computers come in here, right? If they're wired, or you have antennas that attach at the top. And what you'll see here is that we have a little USB flash drive. It's I prefer the slim fit because then it's really doesn't interfere in terms of optics, and it's actually hard to even tell. And we have hardened this enough that if this gets removed, there's just no internet. But as long as you have the software installed and the router isn't reset, if you know, my son removes ours, they have no internet at all. So it's better to leave it in there and they have some internet than than try to bypass it and then they have none. So that's the most economical way of doing it. And there's 14 different models of Asus routers that support it. For someone like your brother, he would probably have no difficulty going through that article. There's even videos that show you exactly the step-by-step to get it to that point. I'm not going to say that it's for just anybody to do it, but for those that have a do-it-yourself or have patience to read through the instructions or have someone to connect with like that, the entire process is available to do it yourself at minimal costs. Yeah.
So the software itself is loaded onto that flash drive, which connects into the router, and then the router goes through that filter, basically.
That's
is what
right.
you're saying. Okay.
We basically take an existing prosumer grade brand like Asus that takes a lot of open source components to make a pretty good prosumer router. And then we utilize the openness of it to say, oh, we can make it even better by also making it a police officer.
Okay, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just another question about the actual filtering aspect of it. So can you basically create the internet in your home to only allow the websites that you choose, from what I was seeing, and dependent on the person? Obviously, me as a work from home
Yeah.
entrepreneur need more access than my 5 or my 8-year-old, but you can
Yes.
customize, say 10 websites for my 8-year-old or 2
Right.
for my, okay, that's really good.
My youngest, my 13 and 11-year-old sons, Judah and Silas, they share a bedroom.
Mhm.
And one of the bedtime routines I do with them is I read them out of a book, 1 or 2 chapters. And then after that, they get to go to bed with an iPod that has absolutely nothing else on it except for Adventures in Odyssey.
Mm,
And that Adventures in Odyssey, they're not tempted to even go and open up Safari because they can't do anything with it,
right.
because it's on a policy where Adventures in Odyssey subscription allows them through to pull down streams, and that's all they can do. And
Mm,
so now it's not a temptation for them to do anything else on it.
that's awesome. And then one final question. I know there's probably other people that have questions too, but is there one search engine that is safer than the other, or are they all pretty much the same?
Yeah. So there's an option for you to perhaps try Swiss Cows. I believe Swiss Cows is actually using Bing results, but if you go to Swiss Cows, it only gives you, there is no option to have not unsafe search.
Oh, okay.
So that is an option to think about. One thing though, with Swiss Cows, once you actually start wanting to lock things down and not give access to image searches and so forth,
Mhm.
then I would move away from that and jump to Visumo, which gives you text-only search.
Mm.
Visumo aggregates different search results, and it will give you pornography results, but in text only, right? So there's no images that comes from there. And that combined with Adam 1, and I think this is something we didn't explain, but it's important to understand. The technology can run on 2 ways. One is it says everything's allowed except for what we know is bad, okay? And that's called blacklisting. Most filters actually run on that way. For content protection, that's actually fairly effective. There's another way that the filter can run, and that really is a huge game changer. And that is to say nothing is allowed except for what is asked for and what artificial intelligence looked at and say, yeah, I deem it as safe. And now that becomes available to the household or to the organization. That's actually more of a commercial environment. Very few houses actually run on adaptive allow listing, unless if they're really super committed, because there's a high cost, inconvenience cost to that. But only once if you asked for it. Like then next time the router will be able to go there immediately. If the brain said, okay, it's safe, then the muscle knows next time, yeah, you can just go there immediately, and it's available for everyone in the house that's on that same policy. So that is really a big game changer. Okay.
That's to use that as an example. How we do it in my family is we run on that allow listing that's dynamic most of the time, unless the older boys or have a class where for something like geography, they're going to need to be fairly wide open. In that case, we'll apply a policy for that class that says block the known threats, right? But the thing is, you can use the schedule and be selective about which policy applies. But that fortification that you were speaking about is something that does not come without effort. It does take time.
For sure.
Like tonight, just as we were starting this meeting, my wife calls me and she says, Ruben has earned himself some playtime. So can you give him 2 hours? So then, I go ahead and allocate 2 hours. But it is then a decision each time, but it's also one of those nice things that it's an enforcement. They can't sneak. There is no temptation to sneak time because it just doesn't work, right?
Well, for myself personally, I liked what Francois was saying about going the YouTube rabbit hole. We've all done it. We've all done it at midnight when we should be sleeping. So
I don't know.
Cooking channels and stuff like that, it would be great for me too. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate your insight. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, is there any other questions before we kind of shift gears here?
Bruce is wondering what the pricing, the costs are to set up a system.
Yeah, so Bruce, there's really, I don't know exactly what is involved in getting a nerd, one of the nerds on site, and how much time is involved in it. The router is probably going to cost you somewhere around 360, and then the basic or the home essentials plan, David, that's running at $8 a month to have that operating, right? US, $8 a month US. You can prepay and then you get 2 months free. And then there is an onboarding that you have to go through, whether we don't actually offer it really through Adam Networks. We might make exceptions through family foundations to actually do that, because we can't really serve homes at the moment. But we do have a home onboarding. That means I think it's 150 US. That just gets you out of the gate running, and you can then continue with the manual and take things from there. If you need additional help and support, I really think the best scenario for you would be to actually go through nerds on site, or someone that isn't like, it's an IT guy. He's going to come and install the thing and make sure that everything works. And then if it's a very quick install, it almost costs you next to nothing. If it's more, then depending on how complex you want to do that, you'll be paying that IT guy more as it goes. I hope that answers your question.
Francois, Neil, and I think, and Annette, I thought we were going to also offer maybe the name and a phone number of Steve. Steve and Jennifer Sansford are also believers and have a wonderful testimony. And they are nerds here in London, a husband and wife team. And they have graciously accepted to support this group. If you want to reach out to them directly, you wouldn't have to give them a whole lot of background. They run this in their home. They set this up for other home users, and they'd be in a position to help you out remotely. This is fairly much a COVID-friendly process. As long as you have patience, you can order the equipment, have it arrive at home, do a Zoom session to get it set up, and then it does work to do the entire project remotely. And Steve and Jennifer are a wonderful couple to do that. They have 2 young children, 4 and 6 years old, and they would love to help you out. Yeah,
and we will post a link for you guys in a follow-up email that can get you the contact details and everything. Okay.
And I think that it's good that we have somebody that understands your system, so they're not trying to figure it out. So that would be, just a great opportunity for anybody that's on this call tonight. Or if you share this video, we'll be posting this video on the Family Dream Institute, and we'll be sending you a link so that you can share it with your friends. Because really, what we want to do is get the word out to as many people as we can. And so one more question before we just kind of wrap things up here. Any other questions? You guys had great questions here tonight.
I had a question actually. Does the router or like the program work like an antivirus? And if so, how thorough is it in blocking like malware, viruses, and etc.? Spam.
I love stories. I hope you like stories too, because I'm about to tell you another one. We have a good friend of mine in Chilliwack runs a car body shop. And so insurance companies use him to send auto records to, not auto records, but cars that are not complete write-offs, right? So Jeff had a ransomware incident not too long ago. For about 5 weeks ago, and now he's running Atom 1. But in that time frame, from the time that he had the ransomware incident where he showed up at the office on Monday morning and the red screen demanded $70,000 worth of Bitcoin in order to get his data unlocked, he then called the insurance company and got the insurance company to cover his losses there without paying the ransom. We got new equipment, the services to get everything up and running, and then put in a common modern tool called Huntress. So Huntress is an EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response software, that's supposed to catch these kinds of things, supposed to be leading and bleeding edge. And so that got deployed and they're up and running. And so then he says, David, we've been talking about doing Atom 1. We may as well do that as well. And in the process, we did that. So Friday night, we installed that. And I worked with their local IT guy in Chilliwack, and me being here in London, Ontario. And it didn't take very long, and we found infected devices that were still on the network. I said, Jeff, did you know that the devices are still infected? Remember, this is just Atom 1, just what Atom 1 sees. because when you take the approach of blocking everything, only allowing what's necessary, then you can actually make sense out of that noise. So it's not an antivirus, but it pays attention and it gives you a great deal of data for you to say, wait a minute, why is my computer doing this? And this is what happened with Kyle in Phoenix. My friend Dave's a 13-year-old boy. One of the things I was able to show him was, look at my tools.management/log. Look at what everything that your computer and your Android phone are trying to do. And he's like, I think all my computers are infected. Look at all the red lines. And I'm going to quickly show you this because this is worth it. If you were to go to, if I can take one more quick detour, because this turned out to actually speak Kyle's, who right now is closing his heart to his parents to a degree, but he wanted to see what actually happened. So let me quickly demonstrate what happens if you look at your logs. This is my log on my computer. Someone shut out a newspaper website that you look at to grab your news from. Anything. Calgary Herald. I heard someone from Calgary. So I'm looking at the Calgary Herald now. Okay. Now let me show you what happened. Actually, what I should do is just go back here. Calgary Herald. So I didn't ask to go to this cdn.krxd.net. I did not ask for Google Ad Service. I did not ask for Facebook to track me. I'm not even on Facebook, right? And I did not ask for Google Analytics to track me. I did not ask for Twitter to display ads. I wanted just the Calgary Herald. And so you can see all the red lines that are showing up that are being blocked. Meanwhile, Calgary Herald shows up very nicely, but the ad that is here is magically just gone. It's just suppressed. And this, because of the automation of ads, you may not be surprised that Google on an annual basis serves approximately 1 billion malicious ads. So the content protection mechanism here actually protects you from malicious ads as well. So to answer back to your question, is it like antivirus? It's different, but it has an extremely net positive effect that a lot of the things that antivirus can't detect. Yeah. A gateway that decides to block everything and only allow what's necessary exposes that kind of behavior and prevents it from doing more damage.
The best way to think about it, Josh, is kind of like antivirus. The best that it can do is protect you against some of the known threats from yesterday. Not all, because not all antivirus share the same threat intelligence. And all you need to do is just change one bit in the code, and now suddenly that hash is not going to tell it that it's malware anymore, right? So you can, that's the best you can ever get with antivirus. And it's kind of like the bad guy is in your house, and people are hurt in your house, and now it shouts out to say, hey, people already hurt inside your house. Well, we take a different approach and say, wait. No one should come into your house unless it was asked for and unless you know that they're safe, right? It's a very different approach. And this approach says nothing can communicate, nothing can actually connect. So even if the bad robot was in your house, we can cut the cable for its connection so the bad robot can't do anything, okay? So with this approach, you are protected against unknown threats from today and tomorrow that no antivirus even knows about yet. Okay, so, but that is security. We'll cover that in a different one. But yeah, we'll gladly jump in on questions on security, but we'll have to leave that for a second seminar.
Well, I think we've covered an awful lot. And so we want to thank Francois and David for just sharing a lot of the information here tonight. And we're hoping that you will share this with your friends and with your neighbors. Really, we're fighting a battle. And I think what Francois said is we're fighting a battle for the heart. And the scripture verse that came to my mind this morning, and even as we were listening, is, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Mm-hmm. And just as David said, your kids will find a way around the system unless you win their hearts. And one of the ways that you can win your children's hearts is by blessing them. What we found in our ministry and what we found over 25 years of just implementing the blessing in families across Canada and around the world is that blessing changes the heart. And so one of the things that you can even do with your children before they go to bed at night, or when they wake up in the morning, or if they're going off to school, is to look them in the eyes and to speak words of blessing that impart identity and destiny into their lives every day. And one of the things that we do at Family Foundations is we have online seminars. We actually just had a Blessing Generation seminar on this past weekend. And we had participants from across Canada on that seminar. And again, it dealt with issues in the heart of a parent or a person. And when we deal with the issues in our hearts, then we don't have to worry as much about watching YouTube at 12 o'clock at night, watching bad content, although I still think we need content protection, but when we deal with the heart issues. And so at Family Foundations, we have many different seminars that are scheduled for they're coming up into May and June, and again in the fall. And if you want to find out where those seminars, you can go to familyfoundations.ca and check out and attend Empowering Relationships, Overcoming Anger, Blessing Generations, or any one of the other seminars that we put on and really deal with heart issues. I hope that you've enjoyed this seminar, or this webinar, and we will hope to have another one in a month or so. Again, have Francois and David back again and to deal with some more issues. This summer, we're going to do a webinar on how to bless your kids. It's called Family Fun and Blessing Day. And so there's going to be lots of things you can check out and be a part of. But I just wanted to pray a blessing over each one of you as you continue to protect the gates of your home, as you protect those gates. And another scripture that I was thinking about today was back in 1 Kings, when it talks about protecting the gateways of your homes, of Jerusalem. And so we can protect those gates. And so let's just pray a blessing and pray over you as you leave tonight, that your gateways will be protected. So Father, I bless each of the people that have been on this call tonight, on this webinar. Lord, I bless their eyes, I bless their ears, I bless their hearts, Lord, to know your love and your presence. And Lord, we bless them as parents that want to put up gates and to guard the gates of their homes. Lord, as individuals that are trying to guard the gates of their homes, that God, that the enemy would try to come and to rob, to kill, and destroy. But God, we ask that you would put guardian angels around each of their homes tonight. And that, Lord, that you would give them divine strategies to be able to protect themselves from the internet in a negative way. And so, Father, we pray your blessing over them, give them good rest tonight. And we pray, God, that you would just continue to work in and through their lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Amen.
Well, God bless you, folks. Thanks for being on the call tonight. And we hope to see you all on the next webinar.